This is a tutorial for part 4 of CAD Model Features 2. It's the male Automoblocks figure with the square base. Okay, to begin we're going to start with a rectangle 0.575 by 0.575 and extrude that 0.3 inches. We'll put a new sketch on top. What I want to do is locate a center point. So to do that, I'm going to do construction lines. And if I just go along the line, when I get to the midpoint, it'll turn to a green dot. So I'll do a vertical line. Then I can do the same thing for a horizontal line. Okay, and that gives me the midpoint, so I'll turn off the construction tool, and I'm going to do an ellipse from the center point. That ellipse has 0.236 for the major axis, 0.155 for the minor. So we're going to use a tapered extrusion, and this will be an approximation. So this will be this part right here. So we're going to approximate that extrusion. So 0.3 is definitely too big. 0.1 looks fine. We do want to put a taper on there, so we go to More, and we want to change the angle. So I'm going to pick a large angle just to kind of show you what that does. Alright, so what that taper angle does is it takes the sketch, and as it gets tapered out, it basically gets larger and larger at that angle. Now 75 degrees is clearly too big. Let's see what 10 degrees looks like. Alright, so we'll go with 10 degrees there. Okay, so then we're going to create another sketch, and we're going to use the offset tool to create another ellipse. You can see the thickness will be 0.05. So the offset tool is over here under Modify. I'm going to select that. And it's an easy way to just make a similar shape, but just at a different size. Alright, and then that gets extruded at 0.84, and that has a taper on it as well. We'll use the same taper angle at 10 degrees. So I want to get both regions there. So the next thing we need to do is place a work axis through the center point along the long axis of the ellipse of the body. So basically we want to put this axis in here. Alright, so I should be able to, this didn't work for me last time, if I come to Work Features, select Axis, and I want to do through center of circular elliptical edge. Alright, but for whatever reason, that does not find either elliptical edge there. Okay, so we're going to do this a little bit differently then. What I'm going to do is let's create a 2D sketch on the back here. And we'll use the similar thing we did before with our construction lines. Alright, to locate, do that again, I want to make sure they're construction lines. To locate that center point. And once I have that, I can place a point there. Now we can do an axis let me try this, parallel to line through point. So I can select, I want it parallel to any of these edges, so I'll select this edge, and I want it to go through that point there. Alright, and that gives us the axis since our ellipse is centered above that same center point. So that's another way to get that axis. What I'm going to do is just turn the visibility off on that sketch. Alright, next it tells us to choose a face of the square base that is parallel to the long axis of the ellipse and to place a new sketch there. Okay, so the long axis of the ellipse is this way. So parallel to that would be this face here. And we'll put a new sketch down there. Alright, so one of the hints they want us to do is to slice graphics. So I'll right click here and I select slice graphics. And what that does is it basically slices away the parts we've created concurrent with that plane. So basically takes that plane we're sketching on and slices away anything on the other side. Alright, so this area here, which has a little bit of a different shade to it, same here. Alright, because we're looking in the inside of our figure there. Alright, so then it asks us to project the geometry of the work axis onto the sketch. So now we have a line there. And then we're basically sketching this shape here. Alright, and again, these are approximations. And this dimension is wrong. If this is 0.8, this should be 1.6, but I believe this might need to be 0.6. There's another diagram at the bottom that has it corrected. Yeah, 0.6 and 1.2. So put a horizontal line down, and then just a line that connects to the bottom part of the base there. We'll do the same thing over here, and then we can dimension from here to this point. It's 0.6. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. and then we put an arc. It's going to be roughly to the top. Okay, so that's our shape there. And then we're going to do a mid-plane intersect extrusion, and we're going to have that go, instead of by distance, we'll have it do all. So finish sketch. Extrude. We're going to select everything including this part here. We're going to change it to mid-plane. Alright, and instead of the usual extrude, we're going to go to the third option, which is intersect. And so what it's basically going to do is take that new sketch geometry and extrude just the parts that extrude with, or just the parts that intersect with the previous features. Instead of doing this by distance, we're going to do all. Right, and that gives us this kind of curve up here, which represents the shoulders. Alright, now looking at my figure, I see I've got this flat edge up there. So what ended up happening, I'm going to go back and edit my sketch here. The arc I put down was a little too shallow, so I'm just going to change that. That made it worse. That was the wrong direction. There we go. Now we've got a nice smooth curve at the top. Okay, so we want to create a work plane through the center of the figure and place a sketch on that work plane so we can do the head. So you can see the head is basically an arc, a line, an arc, and a line. Alright, so to get that work plane, what I'm going to do is select mid-plane between two parallel planes. And then I can select two parallel planes on the bottom base, and it'll put that work plane down. I'll create a sketch there. Okay, so this is an approximation, so it might take a couple trial and errors to get the shape of the head correct. But we'll put a line up. We'll do an arc. Then another line up. And then an arc connecting those two. You can then do a revolve using this line as the axis. Okay, and if I want to make the head bigger, I can go back and edit the sketch and mess around with the shape of the head. Just the last thing to clean this up, let's make the work plane invisible, and we'll do the same thing with our work axis. And then we can give it that same dark green color we've been using.